This speech is very personal for me. I'm going to tell you a little story. It's about me and my best friend Pamela. For 20 years we partied hard. We were meth addicts together until the year of 2010. Pamela got caught with 2.5 grams of methamphetamine. She was sentenced to 18 months at Purdy Women Correctional Facility. I was there in court with her and watched her get walked away in her handcuffs. I cried, but as soon as I left the courthouse, I went to my pipe and my drugs and smoked drugs. About 5 years went by. Pamela got caught again. She got caught with 4.5 grams in 2015 of May. 2015, she got caught with 4.5 grams. This time she was sentenced to 6.5 years. I was there again. With Pamela. I cried so hard. At that time, I realized it was just a matter of time before I got caught with narcotics. I had never been caught with narcotics, fortunately. I thank God I had family that took me out of my environment, gave me a new opportunity at life. This is what my speech is about. Addiction itself is a disease much like diabetes. How often are people cured of diabetes from serving a prison sentence? Prisons are run from profit, and numbers don't have empathy. One primary reason for sentencing an offender to prison is deterrence, conveying the message that losing one's freedom is not worth whatever one gains from committing a crime. In 2014, the National Research Council report found that mandatory minimum sentences for drug and other offenders have few, if any, deterrent effects. The findings were based, in part, on decades of observation that when street-level drug offenders and dealers are apprehended and incarcerated, they are quickly and easily replaced. Although lengthy prison sentences for drug offenders have shown a poor return on taxpayer investment, alternatives such as drug courts and stronger community supervision have proved more effective. According to the National Drug Intelligence Center, in 2007, it was estimated that the cost to society of a drug abuse was $193 million, a substantial portion of which, $113 billion, is associated with drug-related crime, including criminal justice system costs and costs by victims of crime. The cost of treating drug abuse, including health costs, hospitalizations, and government specialty treatment, was estimated to be $14.6 billion. So on one hand, we have $113 billion compared to $14.6 billion. Is the math adding up to you? Let's keep going on. The cost to society is even larger as we are failing a significant portion of our country by not exploring treatment options. Imprisoning drug offenders may resonate with some who think prison is the only way to make their community safer, at least while they're incarcerated. The Maryland State Commission on Criminal Sentencing Policy reports that the average sentence for more than 2/3 of drug offenders convicted in circuit courts is 20 months. Most drug offenders and prisoners will return to the community after a couple years away and will then return to prison because we not have dealt with the complex set of core issues that led to them being ended up incarcerated in the first place. Though the time behind bars is limited, the impact of a felony conviction may last a lifetime, and even a short period of incarceration has been shown to affect people's earnings and the ability to get a job, to be parents, and to become productive parts of their communities. On my screen here, I'm showing you, according to the Schneider Health Institute, we have, this is a normal drug addict on the streets, costs $47,000. Then we have incarceration with an addict at $39,000. Then we have probation at $16,000. Then we have residential treatment at $12,000. Now look at this. On a methadone maintenance program for somebody on heroin, $3,000. And an outpatient treatment for somebody on cocaine, $2,700. Look at the difference between the 2.7 and the 39,000. Can you imagine that? What are we doing here? Something has to change. We can do it better as a country to allow our citizens a second chance to live a productive life when dealing with addiction, but first we need to enact a change. Bringing the issue to those that can create change can help us to set up a future in which addicts receive the help they need, and criminal prosecution for drug offenses can be mitigated. In a first in the nation, Oregon has rejected charging drug users with criminal offenses, with voters passing a ballot measure that decriminalizes possession of heroin, methamphetamine, LSD, oxycodone, and other hard drugs. Measure 110 in Oregon completely changes how Oregon's justice system treats those who are found with personal use amounts of hard drugs. Instead of going to trial and facing possible jail time, a person would have the option of paying a $100 fine or attending a new addiction recovery center. Funded by millions of dollars of tax revenue from Oregon's legalized, regulated marijuana industry. Did you hear me? These treatment centers are funded by the tax dollars from selling marijuana. How ironic is that? It may sound like a radical concept if the initiative's backers said making criminals out of drug users, locking them up and burdening them with criminal records that made it difficult to finding housing and jobs was not working. In 1994, Switzerland went on to pass one of the most progressive and controversial drug policies in the world, which included the dispensing of heroin. To address the Swiss drug problem, elected officials, community members, law enforcement, medical experts all worked together to create the 4 pillars drug policy. Those 4 pillars of the Swiss law are harm reduction, treatment, prevention, and repression, or law enforcement. The multi-pronged approach included some controversial measures, such as legalized drug consumption rooms and heroin-assisted treatment facilities, but ultimately, the statistics show it has been successful. Over the past 2 decades, the number of opioid-related deaths in Switzerland has decreased by 64%. The number of new HIV infections has also dropped significantly. In 1986, more than 3,000 people tested positive for HIV in Switzerland. In 2017, there were fewer than 500 new cases for positive in the country of 8.4 million. The Swiss are prosecuting fewer opioid-related crimes. In 1993, the country had about 20,000 cases a year. Today, the Swiss average about 5,000 opioid-related cases annually. Now that you have examples of how these programs work, it is up to us to push forward for a change. Envision a world where people are treated with dignity and allowed to be productive citizens that are given treatment from addiction instead of incarceration. As we watch Oregon's progress with their newly enacted policies, we as neighboring states should evaluate the benefits and learn from them. But let's just not pay attention to their successes, but also their shortcomings. We can make a system curtailed to the citizens of our state. Imagine walking down to Pike Place Market in Seattle and not seeing drug addiction in its full force, but enjoying Pike Place Market for the shopping center that it is. With some of these practices used, I can imagine my friend Pamela being released from prison with a chance at life, a chance to better herself without the constraints that come with her drug offenses. In all honesty, I ask you, what do you think Pamela's chances are going to be when she gets out of prison? We are standing at a precipice where many states have legalized marijuana, medical magic mushrooms, and one state that has entirely decriminalized drugs. We are now closer than ever to pushing through and giving everyone a fighting chance that suffers from addiction. We can't lie on our laurels anymore. We have a system. It just doesn't work. We need to change. We need to keep focused for the hope of the people that suffer from addiction. We know incarceration doesn't work for addiction. We know this. I'm a personal fact and a statistic that shows this. Pamela is a person that can show that it doesn't work. Jailing a drug addict for using is like denying a diabetic their insulin or not allowing chemotherapy for a cancer patient. It costs the U.S. tremendously and keeps people from being able to live fulfilling lives. We need to have an open discussion about addiction and how we treat our addicts. For so long, this country has imprisoned drug addicts. How about a new way of thinking? We need to talk, write, and meet with our state representatives to get the conversation and motivate change. I'm asking you right now to contact your Washington State selected government state officials, your state senators, your congressmen. Get the discussion going. Let them know how you feel about addiction. We all have people in our lives that have been touched by addiction. Let them know that you're ready for a change on how we can treat drug addicts and addiction by decriminalizing the addict. We share a border with a state that has pushed decriminalization through, but that by itself isn't enough. Drug addicts are people too. They are your family, your friends, your sisters, your brothers, your mothers, grandmas, cousins. Every walks of life have addicts. Don't abandon your family and friends. Give them hope and have your voice make a change.